Part 1. The shuttle docked with a soft thump that Maya barely felt through her boots. She stood near the back of the passenger cabin, her single bag hanging from one shoulder, watching through the viewport as Theta Station swallowed them whole. The orbital complex stretched in every direction, a city of metal and light floating in the black between stars. Around her, other recruits gathered their things and moved toward the exit. Most of them were taller than her. Some had scales. Others had skin that shifted colors when they moved. A few had more arms than seemed necessary. Maya kept her eyes forward and her mouth shut as she joined the line shuffling toward the airlock. 8 years. That was how long it had been since humanity made first contact with the Galactic Coalition. 8 years since everything changed. 8 years since Maya's quiet life in the forests of Washington state suddenly seemed very small against the size of the universe. She had been 16 when the coalition ships appeared in Earth's sky. Now she was 24, one of the first humans accepted into the Galactic Coalition Academy for joint peacekeeping operations. Her family had not wanted her to go. Her father had held her hands in his rough ones and told her she did not have to prove anything to anyone. But Maya knew that was not true. Humans had to prove everything. They were the newcomers, the primitives, the species that had been banging rocks together while other civilizations built empires among the stars. The airlock opened and the smell of recycled air hit her nose. It was clean but strange, carrying traces of scents she could not identify. She stepped through into a wide corridor where a holographic sign pulsed with words in dozens of languages. The English translation read, "Welcome to Theta Station Academy. Report to Processing Bay 7." Maya followed the flow of bodies, keeping her head down and her steps steady. She noticed how the other recruits moved around her, giving her a wide berth without quite looking at her. She was a curiosity to them, a strange little creature from a strange little world. In Processing Bay 7, a bored-looking official with gray skin and 4 eyes scanned her documents and waved her through. She received her room assignment, her training schedule, and a uniform that almost fit. The quarters were small but private, which she appreciated. She set her bag on the narrow bed and sat beside it, taking a moment to breathe. Tomorrow would be her first day of training. Tomorrow she would show them what she could do. Or she would fail completely, one or the other. Maya slept poorly that night, dreaming of forests and rivers and the weight of her grandfather's rifle in her hands. The marksmanship training facility was enormous. Maya stood at the entrance with 40 other recruits, staring at a space that could have held several football fields. Shooting lanes stretched into the distance, marked by glowing lines on the floor. Targets of various sizes hung at different ranges, some stationary and some drifting on tracks that carried them through unpredictable patterns. Most of the recruits around her were tall and elegant with long limbs and silver-gold skin that caught the light like polished metal. They moved with a grace that made Maya feel clumsy just watching them. Their eyes were large and dark, and when they looked at her, she saw something that might have been pity. There were also in the group massive reptilian beings with scaled hides and thick tails that swept the floor when they walked. They stood nearly twice Maya's height and probably weighed 4 times as much. Their hands were huge, with claws that looked like they could tear through steel. Scattered among the larger species were others Maya did not recognize. Some had feathers. Some had too many joints in their legs. One appeared to be made entirely of a dense purple gas held together by a containment suit. Maya was the only human. The instructor arrived precisely on time. His name was Al, and he was a species Maya had read about in her preparation materials. He had 4 arms, each ending in a 3-fingered hand, and his skin was a deep blue that darkened to black at his joints. His face was hard to read, with features that did not map well onto human expressions, but his voice carried the weight of authority when he spoke. "Welcome to basic marksmanship," Al said. His translator rendered his words in flat, unaccented English directly into Maya's earpiece. Over the next 12 weeks, you will learn to handle the standard coalition plasma carbine. You will learn to fire accurately at stationary and moving targets. You will learn to operate under stress." He paused, his 4 eyes sweeping across the assembled recruits. "Some of you will fail. That is acceptable. Better to fail here than in the field." He gestured, and a rack of weapons rose from the floor beside him. The plasma carbines were sleek and black, with no visible seams or joints. They looked more like sculptures than weapons. "These are the PC-7 standard issue carbines," Al continued. "They are equipped with full targeting assistance, recoil compensation, and automatic safety protocols. They are designed to be operated by any species with manipulator appendages." His gaze settled briefly on Maya. Any species. One by one, the recruits stepped forward to receive their weapons. Maya waited her turn, watching how the others handled the carbines. They held them loosely, almost carelessly, with their long fingers barely curled around the grips. They cradled them in their massive hands like delicate toys. When Maya's turn came, she stepped forward and accepted the weapon from Al's upper right hand. It was lighter than she expected, with almost no weight to it at all. She turned it over, examining the smooth surfaces and the small holographic display near the rear that showed targeting data. Then, without thinking, she adjusted her grip. Her thumbs came forward, pressing flat along the side of the frame. Her fingers wrapped high on the grip, pulling tight. She brought the weapon up and pressed it into the pocket of her shoulder, her cheek finding the stock as naturally as breathing. A sound came from behind her, laughter. Maya turned her head slightly, keeping the weapon shouldered. A recruit was watching her with open amusement, his dark eyes crinkling at the corners. His name was, and she had noticed him earlier, holding court among the other with easy confidence. "What is she doing?" asked, not bothering to keep his voice down. "Is that how humans hold things, like they are afraid the weapon will escape?" More laughter rippled through the group. Even some of them rumbled with what might have been amusement. Maya said nothing. She lowered the weapon and stepped back into line, her face carefully blank. Al watched the exchange without comment. His expression, such as it was, revealed nothing. The first day of training was simple. Al demonstrated the proper coalition firing technique, holding the carbine at arm's length with a relaxed grip, letting the targeting AI do most of the work. The holographic sight placed a red dot on the target, and all you had to do was put the dot where you wanted the shot to go and squeeze the trigger. "The weapon will do the thinking," Al explained. "Your job is to stay calm, identify your target, and let the technology assist you. Fighting the weapon accomplishes nothing." They took to it immediately. Their scores averaged around 85%, with some hitting 90. They moved through the exercises with bored efficiency, chatting among themselves between turns. They struggled more, their massive hands making the lighter weapons feel awkward and small. But they managed, posting scores in the 70s. Maya waited through it all, watching carefully, saying nothing. When her turn came, she stepped to the line. The target was 50 meters away, a simple circular shape glowing blue against the dark background of the range. She raised the carbine and looked at the holographic targeting display. The AI was already tracking, placing the red dot squarely on the target's center. All she had to do was pull the trigger. Maya reached up and switched the AI off. The display went dark. The red dot vanished. Behind her, she heard whispers and more quiet laughter, said something in his own language that his translator did not render, and several made sounds of amusement. Maya ignored them. She settled into her stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent. She leaned into the weapon instead of away from it, pressing it tight against her body. Her left hand cupped pulling back while her right hand pushed forward, creating tension that locked everything in place. She found the front sight, a small raised portion at the end of the barrel, and placed it on the target. Her breathing slowed. Her focus narrowed until there was nothing in the universe except that sight and that target. She pressed the trigger. The carbine hummed softly as the plasma bolt left the barrel. There was no kick, no recoil, nothing pushing back against her. The weapon behaved perfectly. The bolt punched through the dead center of the target. Maya shifted, finding the next target, 30 meters to the right and moving slowly along its track. She led it slightly, anticipating its path, and pressed the trigger again. Another center hit. She moved again, flowing from target to target, her hands and eyes and body working together as a single unit. She cleared the course in 43 seconds. Every shot was a center hit, 100% accuracy. The range fell silent. Maya lowered the weapon and stepped back from the line. She did not look at or any of the others. She kept her eyes forward, her face neutral. Behind her, Instructor Al stood very still, all four of his hands motionless at his sides. He was watching Maya with something new in his four eyes, something that might have been recognition. Finally, in a voice so quiet that only his translator caught it, he muttered a phrase that made no sense to most of the recruits who heard it. "Only Earthborn shoot like that." The words hung in the air, mysterious and heavy with meaning. And for the first time since arriving at Theta Station, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Part 2. The day after Maya's performance on the range, things changed. The other recruits no longer ignored her. Now they watched her, stealing glances when they thought she was not looking. The laughter had stopped. In its place was something else. Curiosity, maybe, or caution. And his group of no longer made jokes about her grip or her stance. They kept their distance, speaking quietly among themselves whenever she passed. Maya did not know what they were saying, and she did not care. She had not come to Theta Station to make friends. She had come to prove that humans belonged here. The training continued. Each day brought new exercises, new challenges, new opportunities to demonstrate what the targeting AI could do. And each day, Maya turned the AI off and did it herself. Her scores remained perfect, 100% every time. The other recruits improved steadily, their accuracy climbing as they learned to trust the technology built into their weapons. But none of them came close to matching what Maya could do without any assistance at all. Instructor Al watched her carefully but said nothing. He corrected her form occasionally, pointing out small inefficiencies in her movement, but he never told her to turn the AI back on. He never asked her why she refused to use it. He just watched, and sometimes Maya caught him muttering to himself in his own language. 3 weeks into the training cycle, Al called Maya aside after a session. The other recruits filed out of the range, leaving the two of them alone in the vast space. "Walk with me," Al said. Maya fell into step beside him as he led her away from the main range, down a corridor she had not explored before. His 4 arms were clasped behind his back, and his steps were slow and measured. "How long have you been shooting?" he asked. Maya considered the question. "Since I was 8 years old, my grandfather taught me." "With weapons like these?" "No," Maya shook her head. "With rifles, projectile weapons, the kind that use chemical propellant to fire metal bullets." Al made a sound that his translator rendered as a thoughtful hum. "I have studied Earth's history. Your species used such weapons for many centuries." "We did." "They were difficult to master." Maya nodded. "They kicked, recoil. Every time you fired, the weapon pushed back against you. If you did not hold it right, it would climb, pull off target, sometimes hurt you. My grandfather used to say that a rifle would fight you if you let it. You had to be stronger than the weapon." Al stopped walking. They had reached a small observation deck overlooking a section of space, stars scattered across the black like diamonds on velvet. He turned to face her, his 4 eyes studying her with an intensity that made her want to step back. "The Coalition has encountered humans before," he said. "Not through official channels. In the border regions, in the wild spaces between systems, humans have appeared. Traders, explorers, sometimes pirates. Maya raised an eyebrow. Pirates. The galaxy is a large place, Sergeant. Not all of it is civilized. Al turned back to the viewport. There is footage, classified footage, available only to senior instructors and military officials. It shows humans in combat situations. Maya waited, saying nothing. What your people can do with projectile weapons, Al continued, is unlike anything the Coalition has ever seen. Speed, accuracy, precision under pressure. It should not be possible. Your species has been spacefaring for less than a decade. You have no military tradition at the galactic level, no history of interstellar conflict. And yet, he trailed off, shaking his head slowly. We learned different, Maya said quietly. That is all. Different? Al made that humming sound again. Every other species in the Coalition developed projectile weapons at some point in their history. It is a natural step in technological progression, but none of them stayed with those weapons for long. Why would they? Projectile weapons are crude, difficult, dangerous. As soon as energy-based alternatives became available, everyone switched. Weapons. Point and shoot. Let the technology do the work. He turned to face her again, but Earth did not follow that path. We did not have energy weapons until you gave them to us. No, you had projectile weapons for over 1,000 years, and in that time you became masters of them. You built traditions around them, institutions. You passed knowledge down through generations. You made shooting into an art form. Maya thought of her grandfather, sitting on the porch of his cabin in the mountains, showing her how to breathe, how to focus, how to let everything fall away until there was nothing left but the front sight and the target. She thought of her father, taking her to the range every weekend, drilling the fundamentals into her until they became as natural as walking. She thought of the rifle that had belonged to her great-great-grandmother, still wrapped in oilcloth in her family's home, still capable of putting a bullet exactly where you wanted it after more than a century. We did not know anything else, she said, so we got good at what we had. Al nodded slowly. Your muscles remember. Your instincts are trained to expect recoil, to fight against it, to control it. When you use a plasma carbine, there is no recoil to fight. The weapon does exactly what you tell it to do. And because you are already prepared for resistance that never comes, you are left with pure precision. He reached out and placed one of his hands on her shoulder. It was the first time he had touched her, and the gesture felt strangely formal. You are wasted in basic training, he said. I am moving you to advanced marksmanship, but I have a request. Maya met his four-eyed gaze. Sir. Before you go, I want you to teach. Just one session. Show the others what you know. Not everyone will understand and fewer still will be able to learn, but the attempt matters. Maya considered this. Teaching had never been part of her plan. She had come here to prove herself, not to help others. But something in Al's voice made her pause. This was not just about her. This was about showing the galaxy that humans had something valuable to offer. All right, she said, I will try. The session took place 3 days later. Maya stood at the front of the range, facing the same group of recruits who had laughed at her grip on the first day. They were not laughing now. They watched her with expressions that ranged from curious to skeptical to hostile. Stood near the back, his silver-gold face unreadable. What I am going to show you is not better than what you have been taught, Maya began. Her voice was steady, carrying across the range without effort. The targeting AI works. It is accurate and reliable. Most of you will never need anything else. She picked up her carbine and held it the way they expected, loose and relaxed. The barrel pointed casually downward. But technology fails, systems glitch, batteries die. She adjusted her grip, bringing the weapon up into her stance, tight and controlled. When that happens, you need something to fall back on. You need to know how to aim without help. She fired without looking at the target. The bolt punched through the center. This is what my people learned over 1,000 years of shooting with weapons that fought back. We learned to breathe. We learned to focus. We learned that your body and your weapon must work together as one unit. She lowered the carbine and looked at the recruits. I am going to teach you the basics. It will feel strange. It will probably feel stupid. But if you pay attention, you might learn something useful. For the next 2 hours, Maya walked them through fundamentals that no one in the coalition had bothered to teach for thousands of years. Stance, grip, sight alignment, trigger control, breathing. Most of the recruits struggled. They could not adapt their massive bodies to the positions Maya demonstrated. The other species found the techniques awkward and unnatural. They had grown up trusting technology, and asking them to ignore it went against everything they knew. But a few of them started to understand. A named made it through an entire course with her AI disabled, scoring 60%. A small feathered being called managed 70. They were nowhere close to Maya's level, but they were learning. At the end of the session, as the recruits filed out, approached her. He moved slowly, almost hesitantly, his usual confidence stripped away. I owe you an apology, he said. His translator rendered the words with more emotion than Maya expected. I laughed at you. I thought you were foolish. I was wrong. Maya studied him for a moment. You were not wrong. I did look foolish. My way of shooting is strange to everyone here. But it works. It works for me. It might work for you too if you wanted to learn. Tilted his head, his dark eyes searching her face. Would you teach me? Not as part of a class, just me. Maya had not expected this. They had been the loudest in mocking her and had led them. But there was something genuine in his voice now, something that had nothing to do with pride or competition. It will take a long time, she said. Years, maybe. My people spent generations building this knowledge. I have time. Attempted something that might have been a smile. My species lives for 300 years. I can spare a few for something worthwhile. Maya held out her hand, palm up in the human gesture of agreement. Looked at it for a moment, then placed his own long fingers against hers. Then we start tomorrow, Maya said, early, before the others wake up. I will be there. As walked away, Maya allowed herself another small smile. She had come to Theta Station to prove that humans belonged, but maybe proving it meant more than just showing off what she could do. Maybe it meant sharing it with others. Maybe that was how you really earned your place among the stars. Part 3. 3 months passed faster than Maya expected. The training intensified, the challenges grew harder, and the recruits who had started as strangers became something closer to comrades. Not friends, exactly. The cultural gaps were too wide for easy friendship, but there was respect now, earned through shared effort and demonstrated competence. Met her every morning before dawn, and she taught him the old ways of shooting. He was a slow learner, his body fighting against techniques that contradicted everything he had been raised to believe. But he was determined, and determination counted for a lot. By the end of the 3rd month, he could hit a stationary target at 50 meters without AI assistance about 70% of the time. It was not impressive by human standards, but it was remarkable for someone who had spent his entire life trusting technology to aim for him. You are getting better, Maya told him after one of their early sessions. Lowered his carbine and stretched his long arms. I feel like I am getting worse. Every time I think I understand, I miss. That is how you know you are learning. When you stop missing, you stop improving. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. Humans have strange wisdom. We have had a lot of time to accumulate it. Not as much as your people, but enough. The final qualification trials were scheduled for the last week of training. Every recruit had to pass them to graduate and receive their assignment. The trials were comprehensive, testing everything they had learned over the past 12 weeks. Marksmanship was only one component, but it was the one that worried most recruits the most. Maya was not worried. She knew what she could do. The morning of the trials, she woke early and went through her usual routine. Stretches, breathing exercises, a quiet moment of focus, clearing her mind of everything except the task ahead. By the time she reached the range, she felt calm and centered. The other recruits were already gathering, nervous energy crackling through the group. Even looked tense, his silver-gold skin paler than usual. Maya caught his eye and gave him a small nod. He nodded back, squaring his shoulders. Instructor Al stood at the front of the range, all four arms folded across his chest. His expression was serious, his four eyes moving across the assembled recruits with careful assessment. "Today you prove what you have learned," he said. "The trials will test your accuracy, your speed, and your ability to perform under pressure. There will be no breaks. There will be no second chances. You will succeed or you will fail." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the group. "Begin." The first hour went smoothly. Maya moved through the exercises with practiced efficiency, her scores perfect as always. Around her, the other recruits performed with varying degrees of success. The remained graceful and precise. The struggled but managed. Everyone relied heavily on their targeting AI, trusting the technology to guide their shots. Then halfway through the second hour, something went wrong. It started with a flicker. The holographic targeting display on Maya's carbine stuttered, the red dot jumping erratically before vanishing entirely. She looked up and saw similar confusion spreading through the other recruits. Weapons beeped warnings. Displays went dark. The targeting AI had failed. Not just failed, crashed, every single weapon in the range. Panic rippled through the group. Recruits stared at their carbines in disbelief, pressing buttons and shaking their weapons as if that might bring the technology back to life. A recruit roared in frustration, her massive tail sweeping the floor. Several began speaking rapidly in their own language, their translators struggling to keep up. Instructor Al raised all four hands for silence. "There has been a malfunction," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The targeting systems have experienced a cascade failure. Technicians are working to resolve the issue, but it may take several hours." Several hours. The trials could not wait several hours. Maya saw the same realization dawn on the faces of the other recruits. Without the AI, most of them had no idea how to aim. They had never learned. They had never needed to. Maya stepped forward. "Sir, I can help." Al turned to look at her. Something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. "Proceed, Sergeant." Maya faced the group. 40 frightened faces looked back at her, waiting for guidance. "Listen to me," she said, her voice calm and steady. "You do not need the AI. The AI was always just a tool. The skill is in you, in your eyes and your hands and your body. You just need to learn how to use it." She raised her carbine, demonstrating the grip she had shown them months ago. "Hold the weapon tight, not loose, not relaxed, tight, make it part of you." A few recruits adjusted their grips, mimicking her posture. "Find your front sight. That small raised portion at the end of the barrel. Put it on the target, not the target itself, the front sight on the target. That is where your eyes should be." More adjustments. The panic was fatting, replaced by desperate concentration. "Breathe slowly, in through your nose, out through your mouth. When you are ready to fire, breathe out halfway and hold. That is when you squeeze the trigger, not pull, squeeze, gentle pressure until the weapon fires." She walked through the group, correcting stances, adjusting grips, offering quiet words of encouragement. This was not the comprehensive training she had given over 3 months of morning sessions. This was emergency instruction, the bare minimum needed to get a shot on target. But it was something. Caught her eye as she passed. He had already settled into his stance, the one she had taught him, his breathing slow and controlled. "I am ready," he said. Maya nodded. "Show them." Stepped to the line and raised his carbine. His movements were not as smooth as Maya's, not as natural, but they were competent. He found his front sight, placed it on the target, and squeezed the trigger. The bolt hit the target slightly off-center, not a perfect shot, but a hit. A murmur went through the group. If could do it, maybe they could too. One by one, the recruits stepped to the line and tried. The first attempts were terrible, shots going wide or missing entirely. But Maya kept coaching, kept correcting, kept encouraging, and slowly, painfully, they started to improve. They learned to brace their massive bodies against the weight they expected but never felt. They learned to trust their elegant hands to do the work without technological assistance. Even the strange gas being in the containment suit managed to fire with something approaching accuracy. The trials continued. The scores were not good. Without the AI, most recruits scored in the 50s and 60s, barely passing. A few failed entirely and would have to retake the course next cycle. But the majority scraped through, carried by the basic principles Maya had taught them. When it was over, when the last shot had been fired and the last score recorded, Instructor Al called for silence. "Today you learned something important," he said. "Technology is a tool, a valuable tool, but tools can fail. When they do, you must rely on something deeper, something that cannot be taken from you." He turned to Maya and inclined his head in a gesture of respect. "Sergeant showed you what that looks like. She carries knowledge that her species built over centuries, passed down through generations. It is not better than our technology, but it is different. And today, that difference saved many of you from failure." The graduation ceremony took place a week later. Maya stood in a line with the other successful recruits, wearing her dress uniform and trying not to fidget. Speeches were given. Awards were presented. Names were called. When Maya's turn came, Al presented her with a special commendation for excellence in marksmanship and for her contributions to the training of her fellow recruits. The applause was louder than she expected. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Al approached her again. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "The Coalition has been discussing the creation of a new training program, one that incorporates what you call legacy combat methodologies, techniques from species with unconventional martial histories." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Species like humans." "Humans especially, but there are others. They have a hand-to-hand combat tradition that dates back 50,000 years. They developed siege tactics that revolutionized warfare in their sector. Many species have knowledge that has been forgotten or overlooked in the rush to embrace new technology." He paused, his four eyes meeting hers. "We would like you to help lead this program, to teach, to preserve, to share what your people know with the rest of the galaxy." Maya thought about her grandfather who had never left Earth, who had never dreamed of traveling to the stars. She thought about her father, who had watched her shuttle leave with tears in his eyes. She thought about the rifle in the oilcloth, waiting in her family's home, carrying the weight of 6 generations of knowledge. "I would be honored," she said. Al nodded, something like a smile crossing his alien features. "Good. We will begin next month, but first go home, see your family, tell them what you have accomplished." The shuttle ride back to Earth took 3 days. Maya spent most of it staring out the viewport, watching the stars slide past, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. When she finally arrived home, her parents were waiting at the spaceport. Her mother cried. Her father hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. They drove together to the family cabin in the mountains, where the air smelled like pine and the rivers ran clear and cold. That evening, after dinner, Maya went to the closet where her family kept their most precious possessions. She unwrapped the oilcloth carefully, reverently, and lifted out her great-great-grandmother's rifle. It was old and worn, the wood of the stock smooth from decades of handling, but it was still beautiful. She carried it out to the porch, where her grandfather used to sit and teach her the fundamentals of shooting. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Maya raised the rifle and sighted on a distant tree. The weight was familiar, comfortable, like greeting an old friend. She breathed in, breathed out and squeezed the trigger. The shot echoed across the valley, and somewhere in the distance, bark splintered from the exact spot she had aimed. She lowered the rifle and smiled. The galaxy had plasma weapons and targeting AI and technology that could do almost anything. But there were some things that technology could not replace, some skills that had to be learned the hard way, through practice and patience and generations of accumulated wisdom. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being stubborn enough to master the difficult things, the things that fought back, the things that required you to be better than you thought you could be. That was what Maya would teach them. That was what humans had to offer. And it was only the beginning.